Hey, this is Andrew Brown from Exam Pro, and let's go take a look at Compute Engine. So what I want you to do is go to the top left corner here onto our hamburger menu, and we'll scroll down, make our way over to Compute Engine, and go to VM Instances. So this is where we would launch virtual machines. So we'll give it a moment here to load. And as you can see, I've never used it within this project. So pretty often you'll have to go ahead, hit enable. So you are agreeing to use a particular service. Every time you create a project, it's always going to show you that. But we'll give it a moment to allow us to use that API. It just takes a little bit of time. And I don't know why, sometimes the UI is a little bit buggy. Sometimes it freezes like this. And so if it does do that, what you'll need to do is just go ahead and hit refresh. It's usually pretty darn good. The experience is usually pretty smooth, but not always the case. So I'm going to go ahead and hit enable again. Okay, and it just does not want to work right now. So if that happens, and it's totally possible that can happen, what I recommend is just step away, go get a tea, go get a coffee, and then come on back because it'll probably work in just a bit, okay? I'll see you back in a moment. All right, so after a short tea break, I'm back, and it's now just all of a sudden working. So that's the thing with these large cloud service providers is that their services are so massive. It's very common to run into inconsistencies in the UI where you think you've done something, but it's telling you haven't, but you know you have. And so you have to have confidence knowing, okay, I did do this, and just give it a little bit of patience and time. And just check in again. And so here you can see it actually launched multiple times because I pressed the button 4 times. So it actually worked the first time. But here we are. And if you want a quick start, you can hit this button here. And the thing is that GCP, and only GCP does this, but they have a really, really good tutorial system. So if you want to be shown around anything, you can hit show me now. And it'll help you step through all the things that you need to know. And so this one is just kind of like a tutorial on how to do something. I'm not going to go through it. This is more for you. This is how to do it to do app with MongoDB. I don't like MongoDB, so I'm not doing that today. But I just want you to know that's a great way to start learning with GCP. But what we'll do, and you can see we have different instances here. So VM, instance templates, sole tenants, those are dedicated machines, machine images, etc., TPUs. But what we want to do is just go ahead and create ourselves a regular old virtual machine. So I'll go ahead and hit create instance. And we'll give it a moment here. Today's a slow day for GCP. It's usually super fast. And here we're in here. And so on the left-hand side, we have new VM instance from template, new VM instance from machine image, or the marketplace. Now, I really like how GCP shows their forms compared to AWS and Azure because they're always like on one screen, and they're very good about showing you the price, which is really nice. And here you can do you get a breakdown to kind of see where the hidden costs are. So it's not just the CPU cost that, it's just like there is a persistent disk. And maybe if you're using sustained use discount, if you've used it on a monthly basis, it'll show you your savings. Notice it's like a negative, so it would show you a reduced cost there. But the idea here is that we want to name our instance. So I'm going to just say my website. Okay. We'll see if it takes that. We can add labels. Labels are tags, so I could go here and say ENV production. We'll go ahead and add that label. Other providers call them tags. For some reason, GCP wants to call them labels, but it's the same thing. Notice we can choose our region. So I'm going to see if there is a Canada region. I'm pretty sure there is. I just started typing as if I was on Azure, and that's not the case. So I got to scroll on down and look for it. I know there's a Montreal. There's always a Montreal right there at the top. And so I can choose between my zones. I'm going to stick with Zone A. Notice we have general purpose and compute optimized. Notice as soon as I went to compute optimized, it's $135. We'll make our way back. E2 is, I believe, the most cost-effective instances. Another thing that's really nice about GCP is that they just have fewer things to look at. So it's just a lot easier to get set up here. But this is good for me. I don't need a 2 vCPUs and 4 gigabyte memory. I want to go super small, so I'll click on that. Now I'm down to $7.83. I'm a lot more comfortable with that. We'll scroll on down. So confidential VM services enabled a confidential computing service on this VM. So this service adds protection to your data in use by keeping memory of the VM encrypted with keys that Google doesn't have access to. That sounds really good. So you can see we can check box that on and we have some additional settings. We're not going to do that today, but I think that's really cool. This is something I really like, is that any kind of, most instances, I think most, like basically all instances, can support this container option. And what it will do is it will install a container layer for you, and then you can just specify your container image, and it makes it very easy to launch containerized services, like single container services. Azure doesn't do this. AWS doesn't do this. Only GCP does this in this kind of convenient way. So I really, really like that. Not to say you can't do it on AWS. You'd have to go to the marketplace, but that is like a super bonus for me for GCP. I notice there's some advanced options here. So like, like the command arguments, you'd probably specify environment variables, maybe the entry point. Yeah, that's the entry point there, if you know anything about containers. If you don't worry. Then you have your boot disk. So this is the boot disk, right? And so we have some options here. Starts with 10 gigabytes. I wouldn't want something larger than 10 GB, but we'll take a look around here. So here we could choose Debian or Debian 9. We can change our operating system. I'm pretty comfortable with Debian. I like Debian. Oh, Fedora CoreOS, that's pretty cool. I really like Fedora CoreOS. I just learned all about that recently. You can provide your own custom images. You can set the size of snapshot. You can attach existing disks. But we'll stick with Debian because that's a pretty safe one there. Another one is pretty safe is CentOS. That's what a lot of the cloud service providers base their managed instances on. But what we'll do is scroll on down. You can see we can apply firewall stuff. Yeah, that's all fine. We don't need to do any more with that. We don't need a firewall. So we'll scroll up, make sure our price is okay. $7.83. You know what I'm looking for is a lot of times cloud service providers will have a startup script. Here it is. And this would be Cloud Init. Okay. So Cloud Init is a pretty standardized, or CFN Init, Cloud Init, can't remember what it's called, but it's a standardized way of providing your virtual machines with a script to start. Like it's the first thing it runs. So if we wanted to install Apache, we could do that. I'm just trying to see if there's like an example here. Like it's just a bash script, right? So I'm just thinking, yeah, see it here? Yeah, this is actually exactly what I want too. So this is perfect. I didn't know they had this. And so here, the idea is that we'll just take this. If you specify the first line in a Cloud Init file as this with a shebang, it's going to know it's a bash script, but it can also take a YAML file, I believe. But anyway, what this will do is it will do an update, and then it will install Apache 2. And I believe this is actually for Debian, because if we were using CentOS, it'd be like yum, but apt is for that. I don't know if it needs a sudo in front of here. It doesn't seem to need it. But what we'll do is we'll put that in there. Save me a lot of time. I didn't have to try to remember what to write. You can set custom metadata. We don't need to set any custom metadata today. And just looking at some other stuff, availability policy, on-host maintenance. Nope, everything is fine. So we'll go ahead and hit create. And fingers crossed that just works. I didn't set up any SSH though. Huh. Well, if there's options, what we'll do is we'll just launch another one. But we'll see how this one goes. So what we'll have to do is wait a little while. So I just hit refresh up here. So there's a connect option for SSH. But we're just waiting for it to start. It's just going to spin. So let's give it 5-10 minutes, and I'll see you back here in a moment, okay? Okay, so after waiting a little bit of time there, I did have to hit the refresh button in order to see that green status. But let's see if our website works. So what we can do is go over to this external IP. That is our public-facing IP address. Hit that button to copy it, and we'll go ahead and paste that on in there. And so notice that it's not resolving. If that's happening, it either means two things: our Apache server is not running, or our firewall rules is not allowing us to access on port 80. So that is something we're going to need to figure out. So we need to SSH in. I'm so used to providing an SSH key or generating during the creation process. I forgot the GCP doesn't make you set one in the creation process. You can just click here and it'll let you in. So we can open browser in window on a custom port, view gcloud command. I kind of would prefer to do it in the Google shell. So let's just try the browser first, okay? And what it will do is it will transfer the SSH keys to the VM. So you don't have to do anything. It's really easy to get in, okay? And we'll just give it a moment. Not fast, but easy. All right. and we're in. Okay, so you can type in ls pwd just to see where we are. Let's go see the gcloud command. If that doesn't work, we'll just make our way back here. But I would like to try to use the cloud shell, because I think that's really nice. So we'll go view gcloud command, and there it is. So what we'll do, I'm not sure if this is going to work, but what we'll do is copy this. The following gcloud can be used in the SSH into the instance. Okay, so, running Cloud Shell, perfect. So if we didn't click there, we could go up here and click Activate Cloud Shell. Cloud Shell is like a terminal. I think GCP was the first to have this. Azure has one, AWS now has one, but GCP has the best experience for this. But what we'll do is we'll go down here and say View in gcloud and just hit Run in Cloud Shell. Okay, gcloud is the name of the CLI. Okay. And we'll give it a moment to start up an instance here. I assume it's containerized. It's probably containers. That's how it's able to launch so fast. Usually it's super fast, by the way. It's not super fast today. And then it'll run that gcloud command. It should get us into our instance. Also, another cool thing about gcloud is it has a editor built in, and it looks just like VS Code. I'm not going to switch over to it because I do not want to interrupt our terminal. But if you want to do coding, you can totally do it within the GCP platform. And again, that's a lot easier than the other ones make it out to be. So it's pre-filled it in here. It looks like this is a beta feature, but we'll go ahead and hit enter. It's requesting access. We'll say authorized. We will say yes. We'll say enter, enter. So what it did is it generated out an SSH key for the Cloud Shell. And then I imagine what it's going to do is then take that SSH key, move it onto the server, and then allow us to then authenticate that way, okay? And so I believe, yes, we are in the instance because it says my website down below. So I'll type in clear, okay? And so one way we could tell if it's working is we could do like a curl. So if we did curl localhost, and it returns HTML, and it does, that shows us that the Apache server is running. Probably could also type in sudo apache, or maybe sudo service apache to status. Yeah, and it's running. So it's running, and we did a query. So probably the issue has to do with the fact that our firewall's not open. So let's go take a look there and see what we can do, okay? So we need to go create ourselves a firewall rule, but I just remembered that we're going to need the IP address. So I'm just clicking back to the instance here whenever this page loads. I'm going to grab that external IP address and click back forward here. We'll go ahead and create ourselves a new rule. I'm just going to scroll on down and change this over to specify all instances in the network, and then specify the range and put /32 on the end there, okay? So the top here, we're going to type in port 80, and we'll maybe say website, and we'll say let our website be accessible on port 80. Probably would help to type correctly. It's not going to hurt anything, but you know, if someone else reads your stuff, they want to make sure that it reads okay. Logs, will leave that off. Default network is fine. Priority is fine. Ingress means inbound. Egress means outbound. So we want to get in, like to get something back, right? We can allow or deny, so we are allowing. If we scroll on down below, we can specify the ports. This is TCP. We're going to put port 80. And then we'll go down below and go ahead and hit create. Does not like the name, must be lowercase. It's hard to remember all these rules. We'll go ahead and hit create. We'll give it a moment. And what we'll do is go back to the internet, hit enter, and see if this is working. Doesn't seem to be working just yet. Let's give this a refresh, see if our rule appears here. So port 80, that is correct. Priority, so it has a high priority, so it should be applied. 32, 203, 103, /32. The 32 just means exactly that IP address. We'll go up here. It did not resolve, so just give me a moment. I'll think about this, okay? So I think we might have an easier way to make firewall rules than the way we were doing it here. So what I'm going to do is go back to my instance here, because I could have swore that it was here, but I probably just forgot. If we go down to View Network Details, I think here we'll get, yeah, so there is, we don't have any network tags, so we don't have any way to specify tag. But here we have the external IP and the internal IP address. And what I wanted to see was what firewall rules were being applied. So here, if we go over here, we can see that we have port 80. So this should be applying. And down below, we could probably do a connectivity test here. And we'll see what we get back. Okay, we'll go ahead and create a connectivity test. We'll say port 80, port 80 test. TCP sounds good to me. And we want this to hit the 35.203.103.0. And that's the IP address. We could also just say the VM instance. That's a lot easier. I like that instead. Notice it's hitting the primary internal IP. So that's not going to be very useful because we have to go from the outside in, okay? So we'll do 35.203.103.0. Is this IP address used in GCP? This is an IP address used in GCP. Yes, it is. Okay. And that's correct. So we'll do port 80 and we'll say create. And we'll see if we get some connectivity. So it's just a way for us to effectively see if it's working. Last time test, last packet transmission result. So it's probably running it. I'll just go here and hit rerun. Yeah, that's fine. And do I have a refresh button here? No, I don't. And so it says it's reachable. Okay. Well, we could go ahead and view the results. So we have the VM instance, the ingress egress firewall rules, the static route, NAT, VM instance. So everything seems to be working. So maybe I'm crazy. Maybe our thing is working. Let's go back and take a look again. Okay. But it's not working. Another thing we could do is we could open up our Cloud Shell. And so we were using Cloud Shell within the server. Let's just make sure we're not on the inside. We're not. That's good. And what we can do is just do a curl and paste in that IP address and see if we get anything returned back. If it times out, that means that it's not going to work. And notice it's timing out. So we still have a firewall rule issue here. So let me just try a bit more. But hey, we did learn about cognitivity tests. That's kind of nice. So we'll be back in a moment here, okay? Okay, so I think I know what the problem is. I haven't tried it yet, but I was just staring at this thinking, okay, I put the IP address in. Why is it not working? Well, the problem, I think, is the fact that I provided the IP address for the VM instance, but we're actually trying to say what is allowed in, right? So it really should be my IP address or a public-facing internet. So what I'll do is I'm just going to say, what's my IP? Okay. And we'll grab this here. And I bet that's the problem because we're not trying to allow the own IP address of the server into itself. That makes no sense. It would make more sense if it was ours. So what I'll do is go ahead and click this. We'll go ahead and edit this rule and we'll scroll on down and we'll switch this out for my IP address. Now you could do 0.0.0.0/0 and that's what you'd want to do if you're launching a real website here. We'll go ahead and save it. How embarrassing. But it just goes to show, it doesn't matter how many years you work with cloud, it's easy to get turned around, okay? So we'll go up here, hit enter, and now our website loads. So there you go. It's not that hard, as long as you know what you're doing. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll make our way back to our instance. So we'll say compute engine up here. Probably could pin it. I don't really like pinning things, but so that was our instance. Is there anything else of interest to show here? Not really. So let's go ahead and just delete this instance. Okay. And we'll hit refresh here. Okay. It's going to delete. I'm pretty confident about it. I'm not too concerned about this resource. And so what we'll do is go back and click on GCP or Google Cloud Platform, and we'll move on to the next follow along. Okay.